Can everybody hear me okay? All right. I'm going to try not to cough too much. I had COVID earlier in November, surprisingly rudely, and having taken all precautions. And so I might have to drink up my water a lot, but I'm fine. So let me just set the stage for you a little bit. Mead Gardens, we'll talk about where it is, what's in here. It's not quite 50 acres of land, and magically, through a lot of people's work, back before 1940, when T.L. Mead was working up in his gardens just south of Lake Jesup on bromeliads and orchids, all kinds of tropical plants, daylilies, and all those things. He had a fabulous collection, and he had friends at Rollins College, and they had friends in the surrounding area. And so when he passed, they were fortunate to be able to work together to accept all of his plants, except for maybe some of the weedy invasive ones that they left up there in Lake Jesup area, but his prime collections, and they set it aside here in Mead Botanical Garden. So we think of Mead Botanical Garden often as the place that's the legacy of T.L. Mead for all of his fabulous work, horticultural work, in developing and bringing these plants in to share knowledge of how to grow them and to establish the great legacy collection that is still being worked on and expanded now. But to me, the accidental legacy is that all of this area down at the south end that's so dry, excessively drained soils where you can't really grow much of anything, nothing ever happened to it. And so this is the other T.L. Mead legacy that's down there, and we're going to talk about all of the natural areas and how it flowed and how it changed over the years and what's really important and special here. And we have found some surprising things. I have many hundreds of plant lists, species plant lists for the garden now. I'm happy to share that with people if they would like a copy of it. I think Mead has a copy to put on their website also. If not, we'll make it happen. So to start, there we are. Here you are at Mead Garden. And if you've not been here before, you know that you came down Denning probably, or off of 1792, or over here Orange Avenue, and came down here. And so here is the garden itself. The entrance is here, and then you can see there's kind of a treed area here. And so there's a canal that comes from Lake Sioux. And Lake Sioux and a couple of lakes over here by the hospital form the headwaters of Howell Creek. And Howell Creek goes right through here. You will see more about that. And then out here, out here, sorry about that. And then on down eventually to the St. Johns River, through the Econ-Locatchee River system and eventually to the St. Johns. So it's very, very important here in the headwaters that we are protecting the quality of that water going through here and out to the St. Johns and out to the coast, where our coasts are in such trouble. And that all starts in here with everything that we all do in our own yards to make things better and not run off so much stuff and damage our habitat. We're damaging our ponds, we're damaging our lakes because we have so much fertilizer and runoff use. So let's think about ways to change that as we go forward, and I'm not going to dwell on that too much. So this is what Mead Garden looked like in 1947, 7 years after the garden officially opened. So down here is the Nottingham area of Orlando, and I don't know what this building is, because I think it's where the Federation of Garden Clubs building is, somewhere in here, but it's more of that. That might be someone's old house. I don't know. But you can see this path that comes up here. This path is still here. It's a field road. The entrance to the garden was over here. There was a turnstile, and then here's the creek going along there. And so they planned all of the original greenhouses and features of the garden to be along the beautiful creek. Oh, forgot where I had to go with that. Just a minute. Go back one. So this is visually intimidating, I know, but let's just go slowly through it. These are the native plant communities that we're going to be talking about. You can see that I have not included the Garden Club Federation building. I have not included these areas where there's a lot of events that take place. People come out and recreate and relax, nor any of these things which are the built environment in Mead Gardens. Over here is the greenhouse, the Legacy Collection, the clay pits with their cycad gardens from all over the world. All of these things are movable pieces of Mead Garden. They are the parts that are continually being improved and developed for people to come in and use them. Down here is we have defined a border, and these are the upland areas of Mead Gardens. And then we drop down and we get some wetter areas, and all the dark blue is the creek and the Alice's Pond and this little pond up here behind the stage, and then it goes out and off-site. Everything that's a perimeter of teal, or whatever that color is, cyan, are the wetland areas outside of the creek. And you can see they extend out to here. So I'm going to focus on the ones with the green stars, because some of these other areas, hydrocamet, future wetland restoration, upland hardwoods, those are still in here and in our hearts and coming sometime in the future. But our restoration work and our work with Mead Gardens and the city really is inspired and driven and done by, actualized by volunteers. And we can only work them so hard, including ourselves. You know, you have to have some other life that's not here in dirt Mead jeans, sweating with a hat on. So we try to keep it balanced and proceed at a rate that allows us to work thoughtfully in respecting the environment and each other. So here are a couple of tools that we started with. And whenever I have projects, the first thing I do is I go to the USDA's online soil maps, and it's called Web Soil Survey, all one word, lowercase, Web Soil Survey. You can go on there and look up the native soils for anywhere in the country. You can see what used to be under your house. You can see what is in park areas. You can get a lot of information. When you click on the map, you can see I just have the numbers in here, but long ago, from some distance way up there, someone decided that these were the soil types and these were the approximate boundaries of the soil types in Mead Gardens. And for example, this right here, 19, is called some kind of muck. So I've spoken with people at the USDA to say, what is the process for updating some of the soil maps? Because we are working with real information in the field, and we need it to be reflected in what's published and out there for other people to see. This 24 type is called moderately well-drained. Yeah, I would say. Except that some of it's excessively drained, and this Candler sand really comes on over into here and up into the camellia garden, and what the heck is this lobe of muck here? There's nothing there. So we're trying to get that corrected, but it's a place to start. So we know we have excessively drained soils, some moderately well-drained soils, and some hydric soils, soils that are mucky or some kind of wetland soils. We also have this USGS topography map, which shows the approximate ground elevations throughout the park. You can see that over here at the corner, well, let's see, the site starts about right there. So this line here is 89 feet ground elevation, and it goes gradually down over here, 85, then some really tight contours where it slopes off that field road, and then down here are some flatter areas, and over by the creek, it's 69 degrees, and then up here in this northern swamp area, it's even lower, 67 degrees. So these are the things we start with. And then that was not enough. We had to do this. So these are the soils. As you start at that 89-foot elevation, you can see that the soils, well, you can't really see the yellow, but they're pale yellowish, and then they have like 3 inches or so of darker sand, gray sand on top. And then you go down to where it's a little lower, around 87 feet or so, and you start to see more color in the soil, because as you're going down slope, a lot of the water is carrying minerals and stuff from higher up on that hydrologic gradient. And so these are getting a little more patchy. There's got some inclusions in there. There's some little areas where it looks like there's some oranginess from there being more, and you can see it even better in here, iron in the soil. And then once we get down to the upland hardwoods, which are just upslope of where it starts to be wetlands, and we've not done any deliberate planting in there because there's a lot of invasive non-natives that need to be removed. Yes?
These are core samples?
Yes, these are my shovels from this week. They're not fancy, and these are excessively drained soil, so as much as I was dumping my water bottle on them, they refused to stay together like these wetter soils did. So anyway, these are my recent soil samplings. So as we go downhill and we get to the hydric hammock, you can see it gets darker, and then there's some area where, oh, there was some kind of an incident at one time, and a bunch of sand flowed down, was washed down. I don't know how it happened. And then it gets evenly dark gray sand. But this is really, it's not full out muck, but it's mucky textured sand. You can grab some of this and it will smear a black smear on your fingers. And then we go down a little closer to the creek, and the middle of the hydric hammock is a lot of where, if you walk through there, this is where a lot of those non-native palms and the earpod trees, camphor trees, a bunch of stuff that the city is working with a garden to clean up. And so it gets a little heavier, and you see that it might have some areas where water and nutrients stay for a long time so that these heavier soils build up. And then this is right along the creek. Oh, and look, there's all kind of stuff going on down here, and this is a thick, slick muck layer, maybe 7 inches thick. And then once you get below that, it's more firm, and when you look at the creek, you can see the creek bottom is white sand. And that's because all of this stuff is washed away periodically where the waters come up and then they flow down. So there's a lot of activity going on in here. Generally, when the water table comes up and down, it pulls nutrients out of the upper layers and takes it down and puts it somewhere down deeper that my soil probes that 16 inches can't reach. So that's what we're going to be going on, focusing on areas that are uplands and wetlands and have these kind of soils and these kind of soils. So we've come downhill 89 feet, 69 feet, and now we're going to start here and go back up and see what we find. So the first thing we find is the Howell Creek floodplain swamp. And this is down in the southeast corner of the property. There is a big mass. I don't even know if can you see these on the aerials? No, my aerials are not. Yeah, I didn't plan on that. But if you go online and you look on the aerials yourself, like to the Orange County Property Appraisers maps, you can see that down here there's a big patch of gray because they take the photos for the aerials in the winter when the cypress and other deciduous trees are a different color from the green trees around them, and it's easier to see where the wetlands are. So if we were to look on the maps, we would see a big gray cluster down here. Now, I could not get a picture of all of them, but I wanted you to see what they grow around. You can see that they have big spreading roots. They have buttressed bases. And at one time, before the creek was a little more channelized, that was less channelized than it is now, water used to spread more up into these wetter areas. And now you can see that roots are exposed, so that when it floods, the water goes back out to the creek and goes on downstream, or it settles right near the stream And so the soil has kind of subsided around the bases of these old swamp tupelos. So that's what these are, swamp tupelos of Tupelo honey fame, gum swamps, black gums. That's what these are. And I found this because I thought, oh, so here they are. It's Nyssa biflora. So these are the female flowers. And here's some of the fruits. The leaves turn red. They're just finishing dropping off now. And then here are the male flowers. So I'm assuming that, as there's not too many of those, that the bees that are making Tupelo honey must be going to all these male flowers on the trees. But this is a fun little moth, a little native moth, Tupelo leaf miner moth. And look at its name. Its specific epithet is, oh, the same as that. This is its only place that it lays its eggs, is on these swamp tupelos. Here's more of the swamp. Here are some other species that occur in there. American elms, you know, who came down from up north and you know that all the elms were killed up there by Dutch elm disease. Well, it didn't make it down here. And so the elms that we have here are the same American elms that most of the country does not have anymore because they were killed off. And here they grow in the edges of wetlands or where they're more irrigated and taken care of. Wetlands in Florida are a place where a lot of trees from up north grow because it's the only consistent and not brutally hot part of the landscape. Like tulip poplars, Liriodendron tulipiferus, grow in wetlands. In fact, Seminole County is the south end of their range in the United States. Those basswoods, this is the south end of their range in the U.S. And they grow also in the wetlands where the sun is not so great and the soils have water in them consistently and they don't get so hot or cold. So these are some species out there. We walked around last weekend and took pictures along the boardwalk. Right. Here's one of the plants that are really important in all kinds of wetlands. And this is used a lot in restoring wetlands in phosphate mine areas because it's so easy to grow. These are the big Salix caroliniana, and you know that these were used, the bark, willow bark, for headaches and stuff, and now we have synthesized this and made aspirin out of it, so we don't have to cut the bark off of all our willow trees anymore. These are the catkins. They're beautiful. In the early spring, they're yellow, and you know how you might cut or buy, what are they called? Little catkins, little something, somebody help me. Pussy willows, thank you. Well, those trees don't grow here, but these do. And if you find a place or know someone who lives where you can cut a few branches of these, they smell wonderful in your house. These are what the leaves look like. They are glaucous or kind of whitish on the backside. And these are the seed masses. Well, that's a whole crazy mass of seeds, but I'm sure if you've been around in wetlands or you come here in the fall, you will see these. In fact, little clumps of these will blow around. You feel like you're like in the Princess Bride movie or something. There's all these delicate things floating around in the air so romantically. But this is a really easy plant to grow in phosphate mine areas for reclamation. You just cut off little twigs of it, stick them in. Willow whips, and just put them in, they grow so easily. Right, that. Okay, so here are some plants that live down in the swamp. Super beautiful. These grow around Alice's Pond, and then some of these grow along the main creek. These are an understory plant in the wetlands, another open water, and also where there's pockets of water in the wetlands. Some of the native ferns, the berries of Dahoon holly, which is a wetland shrub, and these are really fun. They're called lizard tails. And when they bloom in a mass, it smells really sweet in the summer. But those are all things that are growing out there in the swamps. This is blue flag iris. I'm sure you can tell that that's a crinum. This is a Thelipterus shield fern, pickerel weed. Such a great plant for planting masses around shorelines to help to clean up water in ponds. And this is Itea virginica. It's got a serrated leaf margin. The leaves turn red in the winter. It's deciduous. And then it's got these beautiful spikes of fragrant flowers that come out. These are historically plants of wetlands or spring runs or wherever they can stay a little bit damp. But you can grow them in your yard if you have, irrigation. Because these are the hedge all along that front fence at Lou Gardens. They form all that, facing the gate, all there on the left. That's what they have, Itea virginica. And the Natives Nursery, called the Natives, in Davenport, has developed a cultivar that's called Sarah Dawn, and it's a pink one. So, moving on. Here we are. Here we're still on the boardwalk, walking along. Ooh, Sweet Bay magnolias. They have little flowers about this big that are just like the big southern magnolia flowers. They smell just as good. They have little seed pods with the red little arils that come out, and they are the larval host plant for this, eastern swallowtail butterfly. So this is a good time for me to say something that I'm going to repeat later, probably multiple times. But is anyone familiar with an entomologist from the northeast part, like Maryland or somewhere in New Jersey, named Doug Tallamy? Doug Tallamy has done a lot of research on why bird populations change and what birds need. And Mead Gardens is such a mecca for birders that we need to make sure that we keep things that the birds need. And one of the things birds need is something to feed their young in breeding season. And what do they feed their young? About, I think he said something like 85% of what they feed their babies are these soft little squishy caterpillars. And we have to have a place where they can get those caterpillars, and those caterpillars are laid by native moths and butterflies, and they only have specific host plants to lay their eggs on. So if you don't have those eggs, you don't have those caterpillars, and you have reduced bird feed for your birds in your area. So it's very important that we follow that process. Oh, gotta speed it up. Okay, so next, come on, where am I? Maybe I'm not in Sue's picture. There we go. Okay, so this is along the creek. These are some of the waterways. That was the swamp, and this is Howell Creek, and we'll see other open water areas and move through those. I don't have copious slides on the wet areas because I'm so enamored of the uplands that, and the wetlands have been impacted by storms and invasive plant growth, and so they're not really very diverse right now, that they could be. So this is Howell Creek. You can see that the sand is white on the bottom. These are the big ancient bald cypress that grow there. Here's the little riffles that come through the waterfall area, some ferns, some magnolia trees. And this is a fun plant. This is eelgrass. Eelgrass is not a grass. It's a flowering plant. It's a monocot. It has little white flowers that will float up on the top of the water on these little skinny stems. And it's a really important plant for wildlife, as you can see there. And the thing that it needs is light because it grows on the sand. So if you have water that's too dark, too much particulates, light can't get through there, you're not going to have eelgrass. And you're going to really limit the availability of food to waterfowl. This is Alice's Pond. I just took this because it's such a beautiful picture. Look at all the cypress trees turning reddish brown in the winter. So pretty. And here are things in the open water area that is just north of the big stage over there. Back behind there is a restored pond area, and these are some of the things that you'll find there. Sawgrass, native sawgrass. It's a really good plant for stabilizing soil. You know it's not a grass, it's a sedge, a cyperus. And the seeds are eaten by birds during migration. And then here are some duck potatoes. There's a wide leaf one, and then there's a skinny leaf one, also important for wildlife. These are primrose willows. Now, there's non-native invasive primrose willows, Ludwigiana Ludwigia peruviana, but these are the Ludwigia mexicana, which, despite their names, are native. And they have a smaller flower. It looks like that. But look at that beautiful caterpillar. That's the caterpillar, the larva of this beautiful banded sphinx moth. And those things are about the size of the palm of your hand. Those are beautiful things. So even though this might look a little weedy, we can appreciate what it's doing out there. All right, hydrocammus. Hydrocammus is going to be quick because there's not much going on there, and there's some invasive things that need to come out before we can do anything down there. But it's on the radar, and it's got these hardwood trees, red maple, sweet gum, hackberry, also called sugarberry, Celtis levigata, and it's got, if you walk down there through that muckiness, you will smell mintiness, and that is this Brown's Savory, Clinopodium brownii, such a beautiful native ground cover plant for wet areas. All right, now here is the really exciting part. If we don't get to all the slides at the end, this is the coolest part. These are plants, when we started in 2013 thinking about, because Stacy Matrazo, who used to work here, had identified to us that there were a couple of gopher tortoise burrows down there, two gopher tortoise burrows. And then in the winter of that next year, we found a little hatchling dead at the base of one of the oak trees because there was no place to escape. The mowers, the feral cats, the fire ants. And so we thought, oh my gosh, we have to do something. So we'll plant a little habitat, plant plants that gopher tortoises like, and maybe we'll be okay, and those will be saved. More about that in a minute. So these are the super fun finds. Now, you know that all out there, there's the big longleaf pines. You saw them when you came in. They're all down there. Longleaf pine dominated uplands with xeric oak understory and grass covering the area. Used to be the dominant plant community in the whole southeast coastal plain. So millions and millions of acres of this stuff, from the Appalachians all the way down through Florida till about mid-Florida. Now it's reduced to 2% of that cover. Logging, development, recklessness, people clearing everything and planting turf grass because they want this big green zone. That's, you know, not good anymore. And I think we all are kind of getting to know that. So here at Mead Gardens, we have a piece of that 2% right out there. It's such an amazing thing. And I saw online the other day that the Florida Department of Agriculture, I think it is, and Consumer Services is doing a study where they want anyone who knows where there's sandhill and longleaf pine habitat remaining to map it out and contact them so they can put it all together. And so that's what I'm going to do, get Mead Gardens on the map. But this is the life cycle of a longleaf pine. They have these big cones, you know, like that big, and it takes them 2 years to mature. And when they mature, they have these little seeds. You've seen them drop down, little helicopters. They fall down. If they fall on bare mineral soil, then a little pine tree can germinate. But when you go out there and look around, you don't see any bare mineral soil. You see mowed areas that have all kind of crazy things as a ground cover. And so our trees down there were never growing any babies because there was no place. And even if one got started, then the mower would mow it. So by protecting some of the area and working to make it be more special, we can have places for longleaf pine. These are the, these are the little grass stage ones. They grow like that for about 3 years. They're staying there, they're protecting their terminal bud, and then they shoot up quickly because that's about the time frame in natural areas where a fire would sweep through. And so that gets that bud up there, so then the little cool fire just sweeps across the grass, nothing bad happens to the pines. This is one really exciting vine. Oh, there's so many. You'll see. I'm not trying to talk fast now because I'm losing time. This is a scrub hickory, Caria floridana, endemic to Florida. Grows nowhere outside of Florida. Doesn't grow in the western panhandle, doesn't grow in South Florida. Only the central part of Florida and the middle of the panhandle. It has 5 leaves. Oh, go back. Don't look at those. Don't look at those. It has 5 leaflets as opposed to 7 to 9 leaflets, which the pignut hickories have. Has really round seeds. We just collected 7 of those from the hickory that's growing on Minnesota, right at the corner of Pennsylvania, in that building that used to be called the Scout Hut. Anyway, and so this is the male flowers, catkins, and this is the lone remaining tree in Mead Gardens, and it's behind the Discovery Barn. It's about 60 or 70 feet tall. It was multi-trunk, but then there was no fire. There was no maintenance. And now it's really tall, and a couple of branches are broken off, and I can't see if it's produced any nuts or not. This is a tiny plant that runs along the ground. This is a native pipe vine. The leaves are about this big, about 1 inch long, and they grow from this zigzaggy, cool stem. And its flower is like this. You know the big calico flowered Dutchman pipes? Well, this is a little teeny one, about 3/4 of an inch long. But they're all over the ground down there, and these are what feed on them, pipe vine swallowtails. One year we were planting down there, and I'm like, Bernard, what happened to all these pipe vines that were down here? Somebody has pulled these out or mowed them, and then we saw the big fat caterpillar off to the side, and we decided we knew what had happened to them, the thing that was supposed to happen. They're perennial. They'll come back out every year. This is a super cool find. This is a pygmy pawpaw, and it's down there in one of the areas that we have improved as a xericamic. It's the host plant to this guy here, and the flowers look like that. Sometimes out in the wild you'll find them where they're all maroon. I'm going to quit spinning this laser pointer around. It's kind of making me crazy. Probably is you too. And then these are sand live oaks, Quercus geminata. The leaves are more revolute than live oaks, and the undersides of the leaves are really white and hairy. And the bark is interesting because you know how live oaks have those long furrows of bark? Well, these don't have them. What they have are these little rectangles stacked up on top of each other. Tough bully, Sideroxylon tenax. This is me holding the leaves of the single plant that remains here. It's down on the fence line south of the paved trail. But this is what it looks like. It's got these beautiful coppery hairs on the back sides of the leaves, and it produces little fruits that birds can eat. Chapman's oak. I believe there's only one now, and it's over by the trash cans by the parking area. Here it is. Here's what they look like in the wild. They don't grow very big, and they are old, and they are gnarly, and they're super cool and interesting. Here's what the acorns look like, and their catkins, and their leaves have a really characteristic shape. They're a little bit ruffly, and they are a little lighter on the backside, but where the leaf attaches to the stem, it's kind of rounded, and that's very characteristic of this oak. Here are some fun things that we found. These are 2 kinds of witch grasses, dicantheliums, and the reason these are important and where they were is up under areas where the mowers couldn't mow them down and spread their evil spawn of other invasive things. And these are really important to ground nesting, ground dwelling birds to eat these seeds. This is a super cute little plant that we couldn't believe still persisted. I mean, all these things have been here since 100 years ago when this wasn't Mead Botanical Garden. These are the plants that were always here. How are they making it? They have really big taproots, or they are seeding out well. Oh, look, I can point at the screen. Okay, xericamic. These are areas that we actually have enhanced with some plantings. So this is down that way, and this is the first area. You can see this is kind of in the spring because the beautyberries have pink flowers, and a lot of these shrubs are just leafy. But we enhanced these. We put a bunch of shrubs in there that will flower in the spring and provide fruit for wildlife, birds in particular. So here are some of the things that we planted. Amorpha fruticosa. Look at those really cool flowers. They're purple with bright orange anthers. And these are the seeds, little tiny pea pods, like less than 1/4 of an inch long. Birds need those. Birds eat those. Gopher tortoises need all kinds, and plants, other animals need a lot of pea plants, legumes, and the ground needs them for the nitrogen. So it's a really important thing to have here. And then this is a beautiful plant that grows so well in dry, shady areas. Rouge plant, Ravenna humilis. Here are some of the other shrubs that we planted. Sparkleberry, Vaccinium arboreum. It's really got beautiful trunks. If you let it get tall and flower like this, it'll flower in the spring, and then its leaves are red in the fall, winter, and then it goes dormant, and then it bursts out again in the spring. So we planted some of these. We planted them as 3-gallon plants, so they're like this tall. So they're not going to be bursting out anytime really soon. It usually takes trees and shrubs about 3 years to get well enough established to they start putting on new growth. And they, in here, in that hammock area, they are competing with those sand live oaks that were already there, hanging over them going, there is no way you're getting the water that I've been depending on. So they are battling it out. So you have to start small and get them established in those areas. Sparkleberry, look at that. Vaccinium staminium, because it's got these little exserted stamens. It's only like a half of a bell-shaped flower, and all the stamens hang out. So cool. And these berries are edible, as are those, but not so tasty. But if you're on Naked and Afraid, there you go. All right, Elephantopus. This is one of a cool, interesting asters. There's plenty of other asters in this presentation, but it has a basal rosette, and it loves being on the edge of sandy paths. It likes being right on that edge. Likes a little shade, maybe not full sun all day long, and it has tall stalks that have these little interesting bracts and these lavender flowers. Really attracts a lot of pollinators, although it was pretty fun, but this wasp was on there drinking nectar. And then this wild pennyroyal, Piloblephus rigida, has these beautiful pinkish lavender flowers in the spring, just covers it like that, and you have a piece on your table. So pick up that plant and break off a little piece and smell it. You can make tea out of that. It's a really nice plant, beautiful in your garden. You have to crush them a little bit and smell them. All right, scrubby flatwoods. Scrubby flatwoods is the newest area that we planted. We planted about 6,000 square feet. And after having planted about 10,000 square feet of pine sandhill with grasses all over, we now realize that it's much better if we have a temporary irrigation system rather than we're killing volunteers to come out there 3 days a week and hand water every single plant so we don't water in between them and make weeds grow. So this is this new scrubby flatwoods area. This is looking from the north end down to the trail, and this is looking from the trail up. When we talk to birders, if anyone knows Bruce Anderson, one of the co-authors of Florida Bird Life, he said, make sure that birders can walk through there, because otherwise they'll be stomping in there trying to see the birds, and they won't be able to, and it'll be disturbing the birds that are eating in there and breeding in there. So we put pathways through so that people can walk through. There's a little X shape. And all this is really an area that's designed for birds in the future. For a lot of birds need to nest, from just a few feet off the ground up to maybe 12 feet. That's where most of your nesting happens. And so that upland type of habitat is not really prevalent in Mead gardens. So that's why we put this back. We also had, the garden had a grant from the Elizabeth Morse Genius Foundation of $5,000 specifically for spending on plants, native plants. And so that is what we started using some of that money for, is to put these shrubs in, because shrubs and a little bit larger trees are quite expensive. These saw palmettos, wholesale price, 7 gallons, or $40. So you can see you would need a grant. We also get money from Backyard Biodiversity Day. We have a big plant sale in October, and that money goes into a special set aside, and we pull money out of there to buy other native plants. So here are some plants of the scrubby flatwoods. This is a small kind of oak. You could put this in your yard because they don't get huge and spreading like live oaks. Little rounded shiny leaves, myrtle oak. This is Florida paintbrush. This is a really beautiful plant. Mine just stopped flowering, and the ones down there just ended flowering. You can see if you walk down there that they have fluffy seed head on them, and they're quite easy to grow. They will spread around. And I brought you here a box of seeds that you can, at the end of things, come up and get a little envelope if you would like to grow some of these yourself. So pretty. This is something that's ridiculously hard to grow and impossible to salvage. We get a lot of plants from plant rescues. Plant rescues? You know, it would be really a rescue if we weren't going to then bulldoze their habitat. So it's more like a salvage, but it seems better if we just call them rescues. Some of these plants that we put down there, we got from rescues. One of the places that we salvaged from was a place that we refer to as the secret forest. The secret is that it's longleaf pine, turkey oak, beautiful sandhill with lots of rare plants, but it's within the property that's owned by Waste Management, so it's going to become a pond. So it's like a bad secret. I would take my granddaughter down there, and that's why I go, oh, look, we're going to the secret forest. So that's what she knows, because I didn't want to tell her the future. So these pawpaws grow in really deep drained soil. They have tap roots 8, 10 feet deep. You can't dig these things up and relocate them. And they're hard to get established. They must have some really tight associations with soil mycorrhizae and that maybe are not there in the spot that you're putting them. So we have tried putting in some 1 gallons of these down there in the scrubby flatwoods. We'll see what happens. These are some of our native mints. Woody mints, they're really easy to grow. They attract so many pollinators. This is a Conradina grandiflora, big flower, and Conradina canescens because it's really hairy. Beautiful. Both of those are growing down there. We just planted this, Florida privet. It has male and female plants, and these are the fruits for birds. These smell really good. So if you had like a thicket of these or a cluster of them in the corner of your yard, it would smell great. We planted this Crataegus flava. This is not a very good picture. It's from a house I used to live in, but there's a bunch of like concrete and walls and posts here, so I just zoomed in there so you could see what it looks like. But it's in the rose family. It has these little rose hip-like fruits. I don't know if you could eat them. They seem kind of dry and tasteless to me, but birds probably like them. But in its form, when it's growing with unimpeded, it will be this beautiful, graceful looking thing that I've thought, you know, if I had like an Asian looking garden, that would be so pretty to have those in there. Garbaria heterophylla. Garbaria is growing down there. You can probably tell from these rocks that I have not taken this picture here. A bunch of these pictures I have had on a PowerPoint presentation for years trying to get these plants introduced into various places. So this is an old slide, but we do have those growing down there. We just put them in the scrubby flatwoods also. These are the flowers, pollinators galore in the fall. They're just finishing up their flowering, and it is endemic to Florida. It grows nowhere else. It's a state-threatened plant. Ilex vomitoria. You can get these in so many forms. You can get the real columnar forms. You can get the weeping ones. They come in male and female if yours has no fruit. Yeah. It's also used by the, what is the name of the company? The brothers that have a tea company out of Edgewater, and they make Ilex vomitoria tea leaves for the tea. It's apparently what native peoples used to use and call the black drink. It's got a lot of caffeine in it. It's got more caffeine than coffee and tea. So you can buy their little containers of Yopan tea. Yopan Brothers is the name of the company. So look for that. It's really good, and it's refreshing and potent. It's my favorite. This is my childhood community. I'm going to try not to cry too much. I see I've only got like 5 minutes left. But this is where I grew up in the Panhandle in this kind of habitat. I had 4 brothers and only male neighbors, and we lived on the outside of town. And so my primary activity was running in the woods, under the longleaf pines, in the turkey oaks, finding wildflowers, exploring out there. And so I have a real soft spot for, don't make me cry, don't make myself cry, all of this potential that's down here under these longleaf pines at Mead Gardens. It's such a special place to me. All right, no more crying. So here's what all of that, you've seen some of Mead Gardens, or you will, and it mostly looks like this, trees with a lot of mowing. This was in 2013. This is a view taken from that same spot now. And there's all these grasses that just finished flowering, and there's gopher tortoise coming out of her burrow, and in 2017, having put back some habitat in 2014 and 15, we had the first baby gopher tortoise. So cute. And now there's a whole bunch of them down there. I told you we started with 2. Now we have probably 9 that I know of, and some of them are babies, some of them are juveniles from last year or the year before. Where did those tortoises come from? We have no clue. They wandered in from green areas along the railroad track. People might have dropped some off. So we don't know where they are, but we feel good that we have some from a lot of different places because that helps to keep their genetic variability up. Gopher tortoises live about as long as we do, and they have many years to go through all their genes before the population starts to fail. We will never know about it. It won't be in their lifetimes. So I think they're safe for now, and they're super cool. They're a flagship species of the sandhill communities because they keep the soil turned up, and they provide places for other animals to hide during fires that come through. And they go down in their holes, and it keeps them consistently cool all year. So here, now we're coming. These are the stars of the sandhill, the grasses. And in between the grasses there will be a lot of wildflowers, but mostly, you look at sandhill, it's pine trees, occasional little shrub, occasional little palmetto, and lots of grasses that change throughout the year. So here are some of them. Oh, this is how we planted. See those things? Wah, wah. Those were the 2 burrows of the male and female gopher tortoise. They're still down there, but now this stuff has grown, and they have habitat now. And here is a new planting that we planted in August of 2021. New grasses, you can see that that's what's out there. But we also plugged in seeds. So we planted this in August, and in November we came through with all of these wildflower seeds, just threw them out all over the place. And so this year they started coming up and flowering, and they'll be spreading themselves around. There's some more of it, the new areas. Here are some of the grasses. Meet them in person. Wiregrass, the main grass in pine flatwoods. It's called a 3-awn grass. Each of the long seeds has 3 sharp hairs, 3 awns. And this is what it looks like. They don't produce viable seed, although they will produce seed year-round, but they won't produce viable seed unless they have fire. Here are some others. Oh, I just love chalky blue stem. Such a blue-green color, so delicate. Lopsided Indian grass, so beautiful. In the fall, look how fun that is. Split-beard blue stem, all these little silky white things out there. There's a bunch of them out there right now. Andropogon turnarius. Oh, and these are fun. This is Elliott's lovegrass. You have some seeds on your table. Please take some home with you if you'd like. We had this planted in 2 big urns on our patio, and all through the summer it was a lovely silvery mound, and then in the fall it started putting out these long stalks. So you could see the lovely silvery mound, big thing with all these delicate stalks. It looked so beautiful in the sunlight in the late afternoon particularly. This one I love because unlike most of these other grasses and the ones we've seen, this one flowers in the winter and early spring. So it will start flowering now. We have some of these that we salvaged and put down there. Rescued, rescued, rescued. But it's really pretty. It's got these cool Christmas tree-shaped flower stalks. These are some views of the sandhill now. This is the area where those 2, this is the west of where the 2 tortoises were. But you can see there's a lot of stuff growing in there. Dotted horsemint, lovegrass. These are blueberries. We'll see more about that later. Some dotted horsemint, which actually turned out not to be a good thing to introduce. Wiregrass, more things. There's some carfiferous, Florida paintbrush that hasn't flowered yet. Here's some partridge peas. I'm going to move through these fast now because these are just species that might be able to prompt you to think about putting some of these in your yard. If you have areas that you want to stop irrigating, if you want to grow native plants in dry areas, these are some that are easy to grow and commercially available. There's some of the grasses. There's some of the winged sumac in the background. These get really red in the winter when you have some cold periods in like January. Oh, that's so fun. That is Clematis reticulata. I had someone who works at the Brahma Island Mitigation Bank, which is a big pasture area, to bring me one of their old fence posts that had some barbed wire on it. It's because oh, that's another one from before Mead Gardens. This Clematis reticulata we just found growing down here on the ground, and we're like, what? So we made it a nice place. And these are things you should know about. Blazing stars, there's a bunch of those that finished flowering down there. Saw palmettos, little patches of those. Their flowers are really important in the summer, and they smell so good. This is a wild black cherry, Prunus serratina. Has leaves that are golden yellow about this time of year, or maybe next month they'll start falling. This is what it looks like when it's fruit flowering and fruiting. And this is one of the species that Doug Tallamy particularly focused on. Throughout the year, with insects that eat the leaves and come and take the nectar, 456 species of insects he documented on this one tree species. These are ones that we love. Sand squares, how cute are those? And we just threw seeds down there in the sandhill and they came up. This is, same with this, sky blue lupins. They are biennials. So this year they had gray-green, soft, fuzzy leaves. And in the spring, March, we should see masses of these blue flowers. Lupin is one of my childhood plants. Not this species, but a different one. And these are some of the oaks and other plants that are down there. This is turkey oak, great tree for color. Good thing for your yard if you live in dry areas and don't want to irrigate and want a beautiful, colorful tree. This is toothache tree, or Hercules club, I think it's called sometimes. Nice flowers, lots of pollinators, although I saw one species, a little tiny black and white striped bee or wasp on it massively. It's also the larval host plant of the giant swallowtail butterfly. It's in the citrus family, which if you know that, you know that these also lay their eggs on citrus, and also a native plant called wild lime that's nice for your yard too, but I don't have any pictures of that. Persimmon, native persimmon, wild persimmon. We have some young ones growing down there. We are very hopeful, there's about 5, that one of them will turn out to be a female and produce fruits. They're really tasty if you get them at the right time. They're ripening now throughout Florida. When they get really orange and get a little bit soft, they're very tasty, and you can rub out this big flat seed in the middle. It's so pretty, you can make things out of seeds, and turn them into fruit leather. Mash it out and let it grow on fruit leather. It's really good. Maybe we'll get some females, maybe we won't. Chickasaw plums. These are nice. I have a big one in my yard, well, like 3 big ones in my yard, and we collected the fruits in May and made some really good jelly out of them. But they're beautiful trees. Prickly pear cactus. Yes, there are some down there. Don't walk on them. Try not to brush your legs. We put them in places where people were unlikely to brush up against them. But you know, the pads are edible. You can brush the spikes off, cut them up in strips, cook them, and the fruits make nice jelly. They're also edible, prickly pear fruits. And bees like them. They attract a lot of pollinators. Winged sumac, we saw that back there in the sandhill. These are just some better pictures of it. Saw palmettos, saw palmetto flowers. So many pollinators go to these. Here's the beauty berries that are ripening now. Nice for your fall table arrangements. And these are the flowers of it. And this is a vine that smells great and is one of the first things to flower in the spring. In fact, with global warming, ours is flowering down there now. These are the clematis. Look how fun those are. And these are the clusters of seed pods. And this is a plant that we got from one of our plant rescues. We just picked up some seeds. Little delicate plant down there in the sandhill. St. John's wort. There's a bunch of different species of St. John's wort. I don't know if anybody's making medications from them or exploring their herbal uses here, but there's a lot of species. And this is tenuifolium that grows in dry areas. Darrow's blueberry. This is what we've got growing down there. Flowers like this in the spring. Fruits maybe May or June if you beat the birds to them. Really pretty plant. Takes about 3 years to get established. All things in the Ericaceae family are hard to get established. You have to be patient. You have to not think you've killed them. Golden asters, beautiful plant, easy to grow in your yard. Passion flowers. Now we don't have those down here in the planted uplands, but they're all right out in there, and they attract a lot of butterflies, and they sprawl all over, and they're so beautiful that I thought I needed to include them. These are green eyes. This is a super great plant for droughty areas. They have a long taproot, and they stay about not that tall, and they are adaptable to mowing. They don't care. Anything that comes through, you can see that it's got a green center, and that is it. And each of those little flat things is a seed. Easy to grow. They are spreading around all over the place down there. Tall ironweed, also very easy to grow, very pretty. Grows about this tall, pretty delicate plant. Coral beans attract a lot of, go back. Oh, you can see we're almost done. Coral beans are great for hummingbirds, and they are deciduous, and in the spring they put out all these stalks of red flowers, kind of pinkish red. And then these are the seed pods, very poisonous, don't eat them. Yeah, don't eat them. But they're beautiful. And here are a couple of dayflower types. I'm sure you're familiar with spiderworts. They're like all over the place. But these are spiderwort relatives. Scrub roseling, which we have down there, and also sandhill dayflower. Look how cute that is. Look at the little face. And this is Arnoglossum floridanum. It is also endemic to the central part of Florida. Look at those beautiful leaves, that big basal rosette. It's about this big, big leaves, really striking looking. And look at the shape of the seed pods. They're like in little stars. So beautiful. Twin flower is a good ground cover in dry areas, likes a little bit of shade. Here's the partridge pea, super easy to grow. It's an annual, and when they die and the brown seed pods pop open and the seeds all shoot out, then they look like these curly brown tumbleweeds. There's a bunch of those down there now. We usually just pull those out, and then next year a whole bunch of new ones come in. It's the larval host plant of this cloudless sulfur. Grassleaf golden aster. This is a picture from down there right now. There's a whole bunch of flowers on them, and you can let them grow, and they'll be lemony yellow and will attract a lot of pollinators. Or you can put in little plants all over your yard and just mow them, and they'll be silver turf grass substitute. You don't have to do anything to them. This is a picture from this is out at Tosahatchee, where they mow along the roadsides, but I have seen this in pastures where they're just mowing their pastures and the horses are out there, and they have this beautiful silvery turf. And that's it. Exhausting. I do have more. I have question time.
So this is question time, so do we have questions for Kathy?
Or is your brain just like, that's too much?
Well, I have a question. For my yard, is that I work in the yard, and I'm trying to find this. It's a vine of some kind, but it's just, some people call it like a potato vine or whatever.
Well, there's a bunch of things out here. I deliberately, you saw, did not include invasive non-native plants in this talk because that's a whole separate talk that really needs some attention, and perhaps we can have another class on that.
Yes, we will.
Because there are a lot of them all around Mead gardens. I'm sure you have them in your yard. You probably have skunk vine with the opposite leaves, and they smell really bad, and they have these pretty little lavender flowers that somebody thought would be a great horticultural introduction for fences and things. But now they killed all the trees out in the main swamp. They're killing hedges all over town. You can see their little tendrils coming up there when they need to be mowed or trimmed. So it's a big problem. They have some fat little tuberous roots. And if you follow the thing back, you can dig it up. Same with air potato. Follow that trail back and you can dig up the root. Now air potato roots are, some of them really big, but a lot of them, they start from little tubers. So the little tubers might be just a ½ an inch in diameter, and that's enough to get a plant started that will go over on your trees. One of the good news is about air potatoes is that University of Florida worked with people where those are native to come up with a biological control. And so there is the air potato weevil that you can get. You could buy, and I believe there are some here. Over that way, I've seen the holes, and they're really bright red little weevils. So you can control them. Okay. I think the main thing is to find out where the thing's growing from and see if you can dig up the roots, whatever it is.
I have a lot of passion flower just popping up everywhere in my yard, but I never can get it to fruit. Well, does it just get too cold here?
You know, I do not see it fruiting much. Where I do see it fruiting is where there's big fields of it, like in dry prairies out in undeveloped areas, and you will see those characteristic passion fruits. but really, they don't taste good.
They're using it, I was in Rwanda this summer, and they're actually cultivating it just to help, because it does have a lot of vitamins.
Oh, yeah.
The nutritional aspects of it.
And it attracts pollinators, and it's the larval host plant. So it is a good plant, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Just be careful if you're buying these that someone doesn't tell you that the other dark purple one is native, because that one is really invasive, as is the red one. We were down in Costa Rica, and there was a woman from Ohio who was studying pollinator biology of those red ones. And you should know that no pollinators here go to those red ones. They're just really invasive and cause a big problem. Yeah. Yes, because maybe you just need to have enough of them. And mostly I see them sprawling on things and having the maypops on the ground. So maybe once they get to a certain size, the vine can't support them, or it gets in a dry period. I'm not really sure. And I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but I love to go through fields of them and go, because they really do pop. Sorry. Bad form. Yeah.
Is there a map or a brochure that would show us while we were walking out there what something we might look for, or where they're located? We're talking about things that
Yes. A lot of them do have signs down there with their common and scientific name, and I've got in my truck a big batch of new signs for the plants that we just planted. So we do have them down there signed kind of inconspicuously. I mean, the signs are white on the back. How inconspicuous is that? But I mean, they're not very big signs, and we try to put one at least at an example of each of the plants. So if you walk down there, you'll see those.
Also, next spring, a couple of our sessions that we're going to offer, we're going to ask people to join us outside. So we'll have walking tours and so on, but we'll make sure that we announce that everybody wear walking shoes, wear proper attire, right? So that'll be exciting. That'll be fun too.
And in the fall is a good time to walk down there, because September, October, early November are the really spectacular times for flowers down there. Asters and grasses, that is their season. I didn't talk about this earlier, and I should have. In Florida, if you've been here any length of time, you know that we don't have spring, summer, fall, and winter. We have cool, dry season, or hot, wet season. So in the cool, dry season, which we're just now entering, everything is going into dormancy. Everything's got its seeds spread out, and we leave those through the winter for the birds, because it's so important for migratory and wintering birds to be able to have those grass seeds. We've seen cardinals fighting over these lovegrass seeds. Oh, I didn't mention the other plants you have on your table, but I will now, because they are fun and things you'll want to know about. But let me go back to lovegrass for a second. Why in the world was this called lovegrass? I don't really know, but I will tell you a thing that I have found out. These little seeds called spikelets are overlapping each other on their little tiny stalks, and they have lots of prickly edges. And so when you are in the field, as I am very often, and you're walking through areas where these are, they will catch on the bottom of your pants, and then they'll eventually work themselves up inside your pants. And they're very scratchy and rude. And I think, did someone funny name them lovegrass for that reason? Please feel free to take those home. They grow easily. This is one I didn't talk about. These are horsetails, and they don't grow at Mead Gardens, but they could grow in areas where it's sunny and you want to outcompete non-native plants. If you pick one of these up, you can see that they have little septations, and you can pop them apart. Pop them apart. And I understood from one of my old botany professors that these have some silica in their cell walls, and that people who play reed instruments would use these, because they're very soft, to just polish their reeds with, because it's just a little bit of abrasion, not like sandpaper or something. And they're cute and free. They will spread out, and they grow in wet areas, and they are a fairly old plant. You probably have one that's got like a little cone thing at the top. That's where its spores come from.
And these flowers?
No, they're a non-flowering plant. They have little cones at the top that have the seeds in them. And this is wild coffee. If we had had restored areas in the hydric hammock, that's where this would be. The flower, but there is some planted up around the office over there and in various places out there by the bathrooms. There's some beautiful ones in the shade. They like shade, but they have these beautiful shiny leaves all year long. In the summer, June, clusters of flowers that smell like vanilla, and then they just finish having berries ripen. And the berries are kind of translucent, bright red, and the birds love them, but they're so pretty in your yard. So this is a good native plant, very easy to grow. I also think it would make an excellent house plant because it's very tolerant of shade and abuse and various water levels. Just saying. Talking about my house, not yours.
Question.
Please retract that statement and we'll talk about that later. Not at liberty to discuss that. You can contact the Native Plant Society, and we have an amazing volunteer coordinator, Hal Stringer, and he will get if you email me that you would like to help with the weeding or the planting or anything down in the restoration areas, we can put you in touch with Hal, and we have once a month work days, volunteer work days. We usually have them on Sunday mornings early, but sometimes on Saturdays, and then sometimes it will be the whole weekend if we're planting a lot of things like in the scrubby flatwoods or when we did the big grass planting. So we have big days where 70 people come out, or maybe it's 12 people that are just helping with the weeding. But we need lots of that kind of help because we're not burning right now, and so we have weeds to contend with, and that's how we get rid of them. Yes? I would recommend that you would look at the Association of Florida Native Nurseries, which is Florida Association of Native Nurseries, sorry, FANN.org, and it will show you native nurseries all across the state. You can type in a plant that you might be looking for. You can also look at FNPS.org, Florida Native Plant Society, Plants for My Yard. You can learn about things you can grow. And then the native nursery that's closest to us and that we use a lot is Green Isle Gardens, and they are out in Groveland. And you can just go out there and walk around and drool over the acres and acres of beautiful things, and they'll help you decide. The good thing to do if you go to any native nurseries, there's plenty of them around, and you don't know what to plant, go there, take a picture of where you want it to go so they'll know what kind of shade or sun conditions you're planting, and take a little bag of your soil so they'll know what conditions you're planning to put this in. Yes?
So that I can listen to you talk all day.
No, my boy, I started having coughing fits.
I have one question. I'm not sure it's really in your realm, but after the hurricane, you're picking up oak leaves, and on the bottom side of the oak leaves, there's these very small, like round, almost look like eggs.
Round things?
Yeah, round things. Galls.
There's all kind of galls. All kind of plants have galls. Some kind of insect usually lays an egg there, and that puts out hormones that mimic the plant's own growth hormones. And it's like, oh, well, I think I need to grow a round thing here. And the little larva is inside there just eating away. So that's what all those, there's some fuzzy ones, cute fuzzy ones on oak trees, and some round shiny ones, bigger. Yeah, those are all galls. Anybody else?
Other questions?
Okay. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Oh, my gosh. Thank you so much. A plug. Yes. The local chapter, the Tarflower chapter of the Native Plant Society, meets here at 7 p.m. on the first Tuesday of each month. And we have speakers about native plants. People bring in plants, and we will make a drawing, and you can take home plants with you and learn all kind of different things about native plant communities and native plants. Thank you.